The brain fog that's taking over this country is not caused by the things you're told it's caused by. For the last 50 years, you have been told to eat foods that are going to improve your health. You wonder why you're fatter, why you're sicker, why you get more colds, why your digestive system is all screwed up. Plants don't like us. Plants use proteins to get through the wall of your intestines, and we keep eating these things. Let's trap these guys before they do you any harm.
Is it possible that everything you've heard about diet, weight, and nutrition is wrong? My name is Dr. Stephen Gundry. I'm a cardiologist, heart surgeon, researcher, and medical inventor. For most of my life, I followed the same dietary advice you did. As a physician, I believed in mainstream medicine. But all that changed around 2001 when I made a surprising breakthrough in my research on heart disease. And since then, I've used this discovery to help my patients get down to a healthy weight and keep the weight off, significantly reduce cravings for unhealthy foods, resolve uncomfortable and embarrassing digestive issues, alleviate achy joints and muscle soreness, protect the long-term health of their heart. In this video report, I'll share my new discovery with you, and I'll show you how to use it to achieve the body, the energy, and the vitality you want in life. But I should warn you, I'm also going to shatter almost every myth you've been told about what makes up a healthy diet. At first, you may feel resistance to new facts that go against beliefs you've held your entire life about food. For example, I'll show you why a vegetarian diet can actually cause you to gain weight and develop illnesses. In fact, I'll reveal some dangerous vegetables you should never eat again if you're concerned about your health and longevity. When my patients cut these vegetables out of their diet, they had life-changing results within weeks: weight loss, better digestion, way more energy, and more. You're also going to learn why carbs are not the problem and why low-carb diets can never produce any long-term results. And all those other diet fads, low-calorie, low-fat, paleo, low-glycemic, they simply don't give you lasting results either. If you've tried everything, and like most of my patients, none of it has helped, I'd like you to do something with me right now. Just say the following words out loud with me. I am not to blame. You see, I'm going to prove to you today that your health and weight problems are simply not your fault. The bottom line is, no one has addressed the one thing in our American diet that I believe is actually making you fat, sick, and tired. And no, it's not sugar. It's not fast food. It's not artificial preservatives. It's not fat. It's not high fructose corn syrup. It's none of the things that so-called health experts have been talking about for decades. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you to eat tons of fast food and candy, but that's not what I'm here to talk about today. This is something you've never heard of before, a toxic plant protein, hiding in some foods we've considered healthy our entire lives. I believe this toxic plant protein is the #1 biggest danger in the American diet, and it's a huge reason so many of us are massively overweight, experiencing digestive pain, constantly craving unhealthy foods, and suffering from low energy and fatigue. I've spent nearly 20 years researching this subject, most of it published in major scientific journals, such as Circulation, the Journal of the American Heart Association. This is potentially life-changing health news. That's why I took matters into my own hands and independently produced this special report. In just a moment, I'll show you which foods sitting in your pantry right now are absolutely loaded with this plant toxin. I'm also going to show you a brand new solution I've developed to help you fight its harmful effects. I'm currently having amazing success with this solution here at the Center for Restorative Medicine, and I feel morally required to share it with the public. Update. Over the past year, I've released 2 other health reports that combined have been viewed over 60 million times. If you've seen one of these reports, I want to assure you what I'm about to share is being told for the very first time. So, if your appetite is out of control, if you're overweight, fatigued, and suffering with terrible indigestion no matter what you eat, I urge you to watch this short video all the way to the end if you're serious about getting your health and your life under control. Hi, I'm Dr. Stephen Gundry. I've worked in medicine for over 40 years. I'm best known for my work as a cardiologist and heart surgeon. I was one of the first 20 surgeons who tested artificial hearts, and I helped pioneer the use of robotics in surgery. I hold U.S. patents on several medical devices, including the Gundry retrograde cardioplegia cannula, which remains the gold standard in open-heart surgery to this day. For 16 years, I was professor and chairman of cardiothoracic surgery at Loma Linda University School of Medicine. I'm proud to say that my colleague Leonard Bailey and I perform more children's heart transplants than anyone else in the world. But in 2002, I stunned my colleagues when I suddenly left my position at Loma Linda to pursue a dramatic change. Almost overnight, I shifted my focus away from heart surgery and towards a new way of thinking about human nutrition. I set out to prove that very simple changes in diet could help people avoid health problems. I quickly established my own practice, the Center for Restorative Medicine, with offices in Palm Springs and Santa Barbara, California. I've published more than 200 articles and book chapters on my research, including studies showing how serious issues such as heart disease, hypertension, and autoimmune disorders can be resolved with diet alone. Then in 2008, I published my first book on nutrition, Dr. Gundry's Diet Evolution, a national bestseller on Amazon and their #1 bestseller in the evolution category. Now, I'm very proud of the thousands of reviews from readers who used my book to get their weight on target and start recovering their health, energy, and vitality. However, my book publisher at the time refused to print my findings on the toxic plant protein I discovered, considering it far too controversial. This is despite the fact that my patients who stopped eating this toxin were experiencing major health benefits: reduced food cravings, loss of excess weight, strong, healthy joints and muscles, reduced heartburn, significantly improved mood, resolution of digestive problems. Needless to say, I was disappointed with my publisher's refusal to print my research on this dangerous plant protein, knowing full well that this information could help millions lose weight and get healthy. But since then, I've discovered a sophisticated new piece of medical technology that finally proved my theory beyond a doubt. In just a moment, I'll reveal this plant toxin, in my opinion, the #1 danger in the American diet. And I'll show you how to nearly eliminate the threat without giving up your favorite foods. But first, here's the true story that led to my discovery. Why I dropped everything and started teaching people how to avoid surgery by fixing their diet.
Patients ask me all the time, what happened to make you leave heart surgery? Now, you'd think it'd be a long story, but it's actually pretty simple and can be boiled down to this. I met 3 amazing patients who were able to completely reverse very serious conditions with nothing but changes in their diet.
Patient number 1, Edward, 48. First, I met a patient who lost a massive amount of weight and reversed his own heart disease with a simple addition to his diet. I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it myself. He literally cleared out his arteries with a strict diet of exotic fruits, berries, and leafy green vegetables. It turns out these foods are loaded with a nutrient called polyphenols, which I later proved had powerful cardiovascular and energy benefits. Ed's remarkable turnaround led to my discovery that polyphenols are an essential nutrient, and you're just not getting enough of them in the standard American diet. So, get more polyphenols in your body became the first rule of my new philosophy. And I'll tell you an easy way to do that in just a couple of minutes. Patient number 2, Patty, 54. A year later, I saw a woman completely transform herself from a self-confessed couch potato into a super mom and neighborhood leader. Patty was 25 pounds overweight, fatigued, constipated, had unhealthy-looking skin, and had been sick for what seemed like a year. Right away, I suspected problems in her gut microbiome, the system of microbes that live in your intestines and control your digestion, metabolism, and immune system. So, I did what any physician would have done at the time. I started writing a prescription for some probiotics. But wait, Dr. Gundry, I'm already taking probiotics. I have been for years. You wouldn't believe how many patients I've had tell me they tried probiotics, sometimes for months, and felt no change. Sadly, this is why many people think probiotics are nothing more than another fad or health craze, which couldn't be further from the truth. The reason so many folks don't see results from probiotics is because they're not feeding those good bacteria what they need to do their job. Probiotics are living creatures. If you don't give them the right fuel, they're not going to survive in your gut, and they're definitely not going to help your digestion. That's why probiotics must be accompanied by prebiotics, the food probiotics need to thrive. Prebiotics are fiber compounds you don't actually digest. They're found in a variety of foods, such as bananas, garlic, and asparagus. You can also get them in supplement form, just like probiotics. One thing's for sure, though. Probiotics won't work without feeding them the prebiotics they need for fuel. And thus, get more prebiotic fibers in your gut became the second rule of my new philosophy. The dramatic recoveries I'd seen in Edward and Patty just from changing their diet really shook me up. It felt like I could suddenly see another side of human biology that had been invisible to me before. Have you ever heard or read something that puts everything into perspective for you at exactly the right time and place when you need to hear it most? For me, it was a quote I jotted down in an old notebook from med school. I was just leafing through, thinking about where my life had taken me, when I saw this. The doctor of the future will give no medication, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. Thomas A. Edison. And at that moment, I knew what I had to do. I walked away from my position as head of cardiac surgery at Loma Linda in 2002 and immediately opened my new clinic, the Center for Restorative Medicine. Thanks to Edward and Patty, I already had 2 core principles of my radical new philosophy on nutrition. Get more polyphenols for more energy, eat lots of food with prebiotic fibers for your gut health. I didn't know it yet, but I was still missing the most important piece of the puzzle, the toxic plant protein I'm going to tell you about right now. How I discovered the toxic plant protein that's making you fat, tired, and unhealthy. Patient number 3, Denise, 65. One of my first patients at my new clinic was a 65-year-old woman named Denise. I liked Denise's energy from the moment she walked into my office. She was open-hearted, intelligent, and had a great, snappy sense of humor. She started calling me Dr. G for the first time I met her. I loved her spirit. But Denise was seriously overweight at about 185 pounds. She's only 5'3". Her blood pressure was way above average, and she was suffering from a wide array of conditions. She was constantly dealing with severe gas, bloating, abdominal pain, and heartburn. The joints in her fingers and wrists were stiff and inflamed. She reported frequent headaches, fatigue, brain fog, and mood swings. In short, she was exhibiting lots of diverse symptoms that indicated a terrible diet. But here's the thing. Denise was a hardcore vegetarian and had been for almost a decade. She was convinced that she was eating the healthiest diet possible and couldn't understand why she was still having so many health problems. She was so committed to her diet, in fact, she kept a daily journal of her eating habits. She even brought in her notebooks to show me what she had been eating. By the way, I now insist that all my patients keep food journals to help me identify the real cause of their medical problems. As you're about to see, you can learn a lot just by looking closely at your own patterns over time. This is one of my trademark tools as a food detective. So I started leafing through Denise's food journal right there at my desk. At first glance, she seemed to be making some good choices. She was eating lots of salads with vegetables grown in her own garden, plenty of fresh fruit, and she quit drinking sugary sodas cold turkey. Very quickly, however, I noticed her appetite seemed to be out of control. Yes, a plain cheese pizza is technically a vegetarian meal, but it's certainly not healthy to eat several slices right before bedtime. Sure, there's no meat in peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on wheat bread, but Denise ate them often during breaks at work. I asked her how she felt when she was struck with the urge to eat between meals. I feel awful, ashamed, but I can't explain it. No matter how much I eat at meals, I just never feel full. I have zero willpower. I assured her this was not a matter of willpower. This was something going on inside her body, and it wasn't her fault. I knew something was wrong with her diet, but I wasn't quite sure what it was yet. One thing I did catch right away. She had switched from dairy to soy milk and got a lot of her protein from soy products like tofu and veggie burgers. This was a problem because I knew soy can disrupt the thyroid gland, which could explain some of her issues. So I told her to cut out the soy milk and stop eating the soy products. More important, I asked if I could keep her food journals so I could go into more detail. Later that night, I kept going over her notebooks, looking for patterns. One of her favorite lunches was a Mexican 3-bean salad she prepared at home on the weekends and brought with her to work at least 3 days a week. The recipe used kidney beans, black beans, and cannellini beans, along with green and red bell pepper, corn, and red onions. Another lunch she often brought to work with her was a pomodoro pasta, made with eggplant, tomatoes, and capers. Then I noticed she loved to snack on a nut mix that included mostly peanuts and cashews, along with a few almonds. I just kept thinking about what these foods had in common. It was right in front of my face. Then it finally hit me. Legumes. Denise was eating just a ton of legumes almost every day. The soybeans in her soy burgers, legumes. The beans in her Mexican 3-bean salad, legumes. The peanuts and cashews in her snack mix, both of them are legumes. They're not nuts at all. Just earlier that week, I read an article about how certain legumes were among the most toxic substances in the world. There had been a nearly fatal case of food poisoning in Virginia when a man ate a bowl of undercooked chili. The article on the CDC's website talked about the risk of acute food poisoning from the red kidney bean, a type of legume. Eating even slightly undercooked kidney beans is enough to cause extreme nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal pain. The toxic agent in red kidney beans is known as phytohemoagglutinin, a protein that sticks to the surface of red blood cells, making them clump together and coagulate. Phytohemoagglutinin belongs to a class of sticky proteins in plants known as lectins. And the red kidney bean lectin isn't even the worst. That honor goes to the castor bean, which contains a poisonous lectin called ricin. A tiny dose of ricin just the size of a few grains of salt can kill an adult human being. What makes these beans particularly dangerous is the fact that most forms of cooking fail to completely destroy lectins. Now, you may be thinking, how can beans and legumes and cashews be toxic? These are plants. Aren't vegetables healthy? Yes, vegetables themselves have quite a bit of healthy nutrients, lots of protein, fiber, vitamins, but legumes also contain massive doses of lectins. Lectins are known as anti-nutrients, in fact, and these plant proteins are highly toxic to animals. Why? Because lectins are actually the plant's natural defense system. They're designed to paralyze insects trying to eat them. Now, besides ricin, most lectins won't paralyze a human being, but they're just as toxic in other ways, creating dangerous reactions in the human body that can kill you over time. If you've been following me so far and think you've figured it out, then yes, you're right. In my opinion, lectins are indeed the toxic plant protein that's making you unhealthy, fat, and tired. So stay with me, because I'm going to show you why I consider lectins to be the #1 biggest danger in the American diet. And I'm going to show you how to neutralize the toxicity of lectins with a very simple at-home solution. So now that the cat's out of the bag, it's finally time to reveal which foods you're eating every day that are loaded with this toxin. It's not just beans and legumes, far from it. The fact is, your diet exposes you to dangerous plant lectins at a massive level. Here's a list of high lectin foods, starting with the food group we just discussed. All legumes, beans, lentils, peas, peanuts, soybeans, and all soy products, and more. All grains, wheat, rice, corn, barley, oats, rye, all grains. All nightshade plants, potatoes, tomatoes, eggplants, and every type of pepper. Almost all tree nuts and most seeds. Fruits and vegetables with lots of seeds, squash, zucchini, cucumbers, melons, string beans, etc. As you can see, that's almost everything. Bread, pasta, pizza, tortillas, cereal, French fries, chili, sandwiches, soups, Chinese food, Mexican food, Italian food. You're getting lectins in almost every meal you eat. Plus, lectins are also in milk, dairy products, even eggs. You may ask, how is this possible? You just said lectins were a dangerous plant toxin. That's a great question, and the answer says a lot about our current food supply. You see, modern agriculture feeds cows and chickens on grains or soy, both full of lectins. And the dangerous lectin protein ends up in the milk, meat, and eggs of these animals. It should be clear by now that you're consuming high levels of lectins at almost every meal, whether you're trying to eat healthy or not. Which takes us right back to Denise. I'd identified the high levels of lectins in all the legumes she was eating, the beans, her peanut cashew mix, and her soy products. But after I researched this complete list of lectin-rich foods, it was clear Denise was getting lectins from a lot more than legumes. That 3-bean Mexican salad, it's not just the beans in there. It's the green and red bell peppers, nightshade plants, and the corn, a lectin-loaded grain. That pomodoro pasta, loaded with eggplant and tomatoes, nightshade plants with massive doses of toxic lectins. And those peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on whole wheat bread might have been the worst, since wheat contains a fattening superlectin called wheat germ agglutinin, or WGA. Even her salads usually contain tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers from her garden, all 3 on the lectin list. Over the next few nights, I gathered all the existing research on the toxicity of lectins I could find. For starters, I realized that 6 of the top 8 food allergies are caused by lectins: tree nuts, dairy, egg, wheat, soy, and peanuts. Now, over 15 million Americans have serious food allergies, but millions more have lectin intolerance, which creates massive digestive problems over time. And that was just the beginning. I found evidence linking lectins to human weight gain, autoimmune disorders, cardiovascular disorders, and much more. Even then, in the early days of my lectin research, I knew I was onto something big, something that was not being discussed by mainstream nutritionists. I called Denise and told her to come back in 1 week. I had some exciting news, and I wanted to get her started on a new experimental program right away. When Denise arrived that day, I noticed a real spring in her step. She was in a great mood, and it even looked like she'd lost 2 or 3 pounds. She was so excited she started talking a mile a minute before she even sat down. Dr. G, I've already taken your advice and stopped eating those veggie burgers and switched from soy milk to coconut milk. I have to say, I'm already feeling better. I congratulated her and mentioned that soy was now permanently on the do not eat list. Then I told her I had some good news and some bad news. The good news is I believe I found the root of your problems, and I know how to help you lose that weight and fix your digestion. But the bad news is you're going to have to completely change up your diet. I explained how I'd identified lectins as the source of her health problems and showed her what I'm about to show you right now. The top 4 lectin risks to your health, weight, and longevity. Lectin risk number 1. Lectins cause massive digestive damage. The problems begin because lectins don't get fully broken down by the gastric acid in your GI tract. Studies show some lectins can survive both heat and the human digestive system. In fact, they're almost impossible to digest. So, they make it all the way down into your intestines, where they stick to the cells lining the walls of your gut. Remember I said lectins were sticky proteins? They can stick to hundreds of different cells in your body. Lectins stick to red blood cells so well, in fact, scientists actually use them to help determine blood type. But this is also how they do their damage. When lectins stick to the cells in your gut, they cause all kinds of digestive problems. You can't digest your food properly. You absorb fewer nutrients and vitamins. Your gut bacteria are thrown out of balance. You can't metabolize proteins or carbs efficiently. Lectins also strip away the protective layer of mucus inside your intestine, which can cause issues like IBS, Crohn's, and colitis. But an even bigger problem is lectin risk number 2. Lectins punch holes in your intestinal walls and leak into your bloodstream. This is known as leaky gut. And as I suspected, Denise was already suffering from it. Here's an amazing fact most people don't know. The lining of your intestinal wall is only 1 cell thick. It's built that way because it's supposed to easily absorb all your vitamins, minerals, fats, sugars, and very small protein molecules. But lectins are large proteins, and again, they stick to the cells on the wall of your gut. Eventually, they pry open your gut lining, leaking into your bloodstream and letting all kinds of other toxins leak out with them. It's a terrible problem because once those toxins break out of your gut, they start causing problems all over your body. Your immune system has to work hard to fight this invasion by lectins, and that drains your body of energy it needs for other things. When I discovered this evidence, I was shocked to learn that no one else was even talking about lectins. In fact, most of my colleagues in the gut health community who dealt with leaky gut patients seemed to ignore the root cause altogether, which brings us to one of the most serious of all lectin risks. Lectin risk number 3. Lectins can increase your appetite and thus are directly linked to human weight gain. You've already seen how lectins stick to different kinds of cells in your body and cause tremendous problems. Well, lectins are the most destructive when they stick to your insulin receptors. And when that happens, they block your brain from receiving the one key hormone that controls your appetite. Let me say it another way. If this hormone is blocked, your brain never gets the message that you're full, and you just keep eating. Multiple studies published in major scientific journals have shown that when this hormone gets blocked, it actually causes human weight gain. And lectins are proven to block that hormone. Bottom line, the lectins in your food, in rice, potatoes, dairy, and particularly the lectin WGA found in wheat, can cause you to overeat and gain weight. This is why Denise felt the irresistible urge to snack constantly, even though she'd eaten full meals. Her high lectin diet was disrupting the hormones which should have been naturally shutting down her appetite and food cravings. This is why dealing with your lectin problem can help you lose weight, get fit, feel more active, and maintain a youthful body shape. So far, I've shown you how lectins are in hundreds of your favorite foods and how they cause serious health problems. Severe food poisoning and food allergies, damage to your digestive system, poor nutrient absorption, which equals low energy, weak immune system, leaky gut syndrome, achy joints and sore muscles, and worst of all, they dramatically increase your appetite and lead to uncontrollable weight gain. But remember, in this video presentation, I'm also going to show you a way out. In just a moment, I'll reveal my innovative new solution to help you fight the toxic effect of lectins without having to make any big changes to your diet. This breakthrough will help you lose weight, give you better digestion, less joint discomfort, more energy, and a stronger immune system. But back in 2002, when I first discovered the lectin problem with Denise, I needed more research to find out if it was as serious as I suspected. In the meantime, I made a basic diet plan for Denise. I quickly drew it up on a pad of legal paper in my office. It simply had 2 columns. Column 1, do not eat, all the foods with lectins, including bread, rice, potatoes. And column 2, do eat, including healthy polyphenol-rich foods like grass-fed steak, dark chocolate, and red wine. Yes, I'm being serious. More on this later. This was basically a total lectin avoidance diet. Pretty extreme and unrealistic for most people, but I just needed to see if it would work. And Denise was the perfect candidate. She was willing to try anything to get healthy. She left my office that day with a copy of my 2-column diet plan and a positive attitude. In the meantime, I began insisting that my new patients keep food journals and bring them to me so I could look for patterns. And over time, I saw something that shocked me. I began to notice that many of my patients showing symptoms of heart disease were also eating very high lectin diets. I saw this pattern over and over again, but a link wasn't enough. Remember, I was a published researcher and respected medical inventor. I needed real proof that lectins were causing an increased risk of heart disease. So I decided to conduct my own clinical study on it. The results of this study led directly to the 4th and last of the major lectin risks. Lectin risk number 4. Lectins damage your blood vessels and put you at higher risk of heart disease. Lectins weaken your blood vessels. This condition, called endothelial dysfunction, has been linked to hypertension, heart disease, diabetes, and even obesity. As a cardiologist and cardiac surgeon, this is something I take very personally. So, I took 200 men and women between the ages of 51 and 86. Most were experiencing some degree of endothelial dysfunction, and they were all at risk of cardiovascular disease. In other words, these were totally average Americans in that age group. So, I simply eliminated all lectins from their diets during a long-range study. And after 6 months, I was blown away by the test results. The findings of this study, presented to the American Heart Association in 2013, were stunning. There was a 72% decrease in endothelial dysfunction, The markers for cardiovascular disease decreased in 100% of my patients. This was clinical proof that eliminating lectins can help lower your risk of heart disease. This study changed everything for me. From that point onward, I dedicated my career to educating the public about lectins and looking for a solution. I wanted to answer one big question. How can we protect the human body against lectins? Now, the quick answer is eliminate all foods with lectins. Remember how I prescribed Denise a super restrictive total lectin avoidance diet? Well, she really committed to it and cut out all grains, all legumes, nuts, dairy, and all those lectin-heavy vegetables. She'd stopped eating literally everything on the do not eat list I'd given her, and her transformation was remarkable. Her gas, bloating, and heartburn had lessened dramatically. The discomfort in her fingers was noticeably reduced. She reported lots more physical and mental energy. Her blood pressure was healthy. Most important, Denise told me she no longer had uncontrollable food cravings in between meals. Her appetite felt under control, and she had lost about 20 pounds in 3 months. It was clear that cutting out toxic lectins could radically change your life and your health for the better. And the more I removed high lectin foods from patients' diets, the better they felt, the more weight they lost, and the more their health was improved. But as time went on, I realized most of my patients were relapsing, adding back their favorite foods and loading up on lectins again. The weight came back, their joints started to ache again, and their energy levels went way down. So, eventually I had to face the facts. It's almost impossible to cut lectins out completely. And why would you want to? You'd have to give up bread, pasta, French fries, all your favorite foods. Who can live like that? The list goes on and on. Rice, potatoes, corn, cheese, peppers, tomatoes, pastries, nuts, they're all chock full of lectins. But can you imagine living without all that? What would you even eat? Most of your favorite meals use at least some of these very common ingredients. Now, don't get me wrong. I do advise my patients to avoid eating the 3 foods with the highest lectin content: soy, tree nuts, and eggplants. Those are still on the do not eat list. So I started looking for another way to solve the problem, something that real people could use in their lives without having to make radical diet changes. Well, you may not believe this, but the solution turned out to be surprisingly simple and amazingly effective. It turns out there's a shield for lectins. It's an amazingly simple little trick that happens inside your cells. Remember, lectins do their damage by sticking to certain cells in your body, but there are some very simple natural compounds which actually block lectins from sticking to cells, thus preventing them from doing any damage. These compounds are called mono and oligosaccharides, and they can be found in a number of natural sources. Now, I'm going to tell you more about these ingredients and how they work in just a minute, but I'm so excited right now to introduce the results of my latest lectin research. It's a brand new product from Gundry MD. It's called Lectin Shield. By blocking lectins in your diet, this formula is designed to help significantly reduce gas, bloating, and digestive discomfort, control cravings for unhealthy foods, reduce